This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Monday, 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 must be funny in the rich man's world.
And welcome to Boomer Life on CL 650. I'm Joanne Sutton. Today we're speaking with Jim Doyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group Financial Services. Are you where you want to be financially? A well-thought-out plan for your financial future is an integral part of building the life that you want for yourself and for your family. So here's the skill-testing question. Would you like to know an investment secret? Well, wouldn't everyone? That's why we have Jim Doyle here today to answer all of the tough investing and financial planning questions.
Wonderful. Something that shook the market recently was the result of the Brexit vote, and it significantly affected global markets early on. Almost all markets moved in the same direction, down.
Well, we saw all that, and we followed it in the news, and there's a lot of speculation, but the bottom line is I don't think the average person here knows what it really means.
I don't think Brexit is done with us yet. In my opinion, it's no longer about a shortage of information. It's about sifting through what information matters, who to listen to, and deciding what to do with the information once you have it. If you think about it for a moment, that's a pretty heavy load. I have a sense many of us are just hardwired to try and make sense of and have some control over our futures.
And just a quick reminder that Brexit was the vote for Britain to exit the European Union.
What this event highlighted in spades was that markets hate uncertainty, and people aren't any different. No one really knows where things are going to go, when it's going to happen, what it's going to look like, or how the unknown is going to affect them.
There's no crystal ball here, so that's exactly it. So what sorts of unknowns are we actually talking about, Jim?
Well, given what's changed, it could be as simple as what are the expected rate of return on an interest-bearing investment, or how long can I spend like this? There's a great deal of the comfort that comes from having a roadmap to measure against things. A simple question like, am I on track? Or if not, what do I have to do from here to get back on track? A written financial plan can help you with these questions.
When it comes to creating a sense of control over our futures, it sounds like dealing with the unknown is part of the problem. But for some people, they feel it could be too late for them. So what can you offer for investors that are getting a bit of a late start on retirement savings?
First thing, and here's a biggie, okay? Get beyond the feeling that there's nothing you can do about it. There's almost always a few things you can do to improve your financial situation. It's about deciding what choices you can live with and which ones are non-starters. If you're in your 50s and you haven't started saving for retirement, you're not alone.
So, Jim, as you've been telling us for some time, financial habits are learned, both good and bad. And with your help, I'm hoping that we can actually give our listeners a few things that they can start doing right now to improve their lot.
First, don't take risks and experiment with your future.
What do you mean by that? No gambling, right?
Right. Waking up at 50 and deciding you're going to learn to trade options or become a day trader using your must-have retirement savings as your testing grounds, well, that's a fool's game.
Well, even I know that if the experts have trouble winning consistently, maybe that's something I should stay away from. It's pretty clear, Jim, that nothing is more intelligent than knowing what your personal limitations are. Isn't this a good example of why people should be working with an advisor like you?
A great statement. So do I pay you now or later?
Yeah, put the check in the mail.
Seriously, a great place to start is to look at new ways to build additional cash flow. On a more simple basis, to build retirement savings, you need to spend less than you make, and then you need to keep some of what is left over for the long term.
It's called living within your means and basically not living off a line of credit.
That's right. When I start working with younger clients, we often speak of the tendency to bring one's lifestyle up to where the paycheck is.
You mean the more you make, the more you spend, and the more you feel justified in spending where you spend it.
The longer you've been living a certain way, the more difficult it can be to make changes. If you need to save more, you might want to start by looking at what things you can either cut back on or eliminate altogether.
Jim, do you have an example of this? Where would be a good place to start?
When I was in my early 20s, I decided to buy my first home, and I became a power saver. I was amazed at how much I could suddenly start saving on a monthly basis. Just mere months ago, things I thought that were essential to spend my money on seemed okay to either reduce or eliminate altogether. I had a mission, and nothing was going to take me off my goal of putting together a deposit for my first place. It taught me a valuable lesson that has stuck with me until today. If you believe in a goal, have commitment, and you can measure it, you can achieve some pretty amazing things.
Well, I can hear your commitment towards achieving your goal, but what about those of us who, well, maybe haven't been as disciplined in achieving our financial goals?
An advisor's value increases through their clients' entire investing lifetimes, from the early adoption of saving habits to developing investment perspectives. Working with an advisor helps you avoid common behavioral investment errors because there's an understanding of the value in developing and following a financial plan and sticking to it.
So basically, a coach to help us when we need a nudge to do the things we need to do, and a voice of reason to help us chill on some of those financial habits that tend to take us off track, like spending or building personal debt.
Whether it's the IFIC studies or the Dalbar reports or the Serrano studies, a common theme seems to show that investors who work with financial advisors have more wealth and investable assets on average. These large differentials were found to exist for net worth and investable assets across all age groups and income levels.
Well, the bottom line here is if you want to increase your net worth, you need to be talking to someone like Jim. Here's a good time for me to pass along his phone number, 604-682-5431. So, Jim, here's a question for you. Are these investors wealthy because they've worked with advisors, or were they already wealthy before seeking advice?
It's a great question, but what the research shows is that most investors first began to work with an advisor when they only have modest amount of savings. I think it was an Ipsos report that most advised investors, about 52% of them, started working with an advisor with less than $25,000, and 73% started working with an advisor with less than $50,000, and a desire to start investing and to grow their assets.
Well, you've been doing this for a long time, Jim. Do you have any stories to share about that?
We recently met with a client who downsized their home into a gorgeous gated community. They'd been clients for over 20 years and were appreciative of where they started from and how far they'd come in terms of what they had and what they have now. And it was really special to have been part of their journey.
So is it true that many advisors are looking to work more exclusively with higher net worth individuals, yet most bread and butter clients come from more modest means?
I'd have to agree. I think the greatest benefit of working with an advisor is that if you have a good advisor, you're more likely to look at all aspects of your financial situation, whether that means looking at savings goals regularly or ensuring appropriate insurance coverages, and importantly, some of the things we chronically put off, like making sure you have a current will and a power of attorney.
Jim, are there any other benefits?
Great benefits arise from the discipline of developing and following a professional investment plan. Investors with a plan save more regularly and tend to avoid the common investment errors they'd fall prey to if they were left on their own.
Well, it's surprising how for so many Canadians that feeling financially secure is tied to a number on a bank statement instead of what the money can or can't do for you. So while advisors can't make clients feel completely secure, they can help them focus on the things that they can control to feel more assured.
John, after years of working with clients, I've come to realize if you're an insecure person, no amount of money will make you feel more secure. Now, what do I mean by that? I know many people who've got more than enough money in the bank account, yet they lie awake at night, convinced it could all disappear tomorrow. For people in this group, no number, No matter how big, we relieve that insecurity. On the other side, I know of plenty of people living paycheck to paycheck who feel financially secure.
Well, I guess that's a question of perspective, Jim. When people don't feel secure in their future, they want to turn to someone for answers. So for those that are lying there in bed, awake at night, convinced it could all disappear tomorrow, how do you help that type of person?
Something I like to borrow from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. I don't want to sound dismissive, but sometimes just having the discussion around what's the worst thing that could happen, and then talking about if it was likely to happen, how likely would that be to work out that way? These discussions can help relieve or alleviate anxiety.
Okay, so you've made a pretty strong argument for the advised client to be a lifelong arrangement to see bigger benefits. Let's get back to helping that late starter investor in building their retirement savings. What other things can that late starter look at?
We talked about not experimenting with your future. Another one might be don't dial up the risk. This is another example of experimenting with investment vehicles, especially if you don't fully understand or if they promise really high returns.
Well, it sounds like pretty solid advice.
It takes time to educate yourself. If you want to be or have more sophisticated investors, consider joining an investment club where you can get a lot of experience with very little savings risk. Remember, your capital is a lot harder to replace now. So I'd like to share a couple of other tips if I could.
Well, this is a good time to grab a pen and paper. You might want to jot a few of these down.
This one's enormous, okay? Don't take on additional debt. Next, consider working longer or maybe working part-time. Another one could be to explore ways that you can build an income stream, like revenue properties or how you're going to use your tax-free savings account. The next is setting a savings goal and working towards it. Consider downsizing your home if it's an option, because this can be one of your largest retirement expenses. And my last one, and this is the hardest for some people, is to track your average monthly expenses and consider establishing a budget for a while.
Oh, right back to sticking pins in my eyes and writing down my expenses for the month. Most of us, Jim, are familiar with the largest retirement expense being our home, but I'm curious, what's the number 2 choice?
It's transportation. Take a look at your vehicles. Could you downsize here? Are you paying to operate and maintain 2 vehicles? Many people look upon this as defeat, but it's really a smart decision, especially when you're considering where the funds are going to come from to pay for your next car in retirement. This is one of those things that we like to look at when we do a written financial plan for clients.
Thanks for that. We started off earlier by noting if you're an investor in your 50s getting a late start on retirement savings, that you're not alone and it's not too late. The important question you might want to be asking yourself is, what can you actually do about it? We also noted that for some people who have investments, they too feel anxious about their future. Uncertainty is not a great breeding ground for confidence. And the one tool that can help, it's the single plan. It's just to have a plan. This is BomerLife on CL 650, and today we're speaking with Jim Doyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group. And to learn how Jim can help with your financial situation, please give him a phone call, 604-682-5431, or you can always send him an email, jim.doyle@investorsgroup.com. We've all heard how many of us would like to achieve more financially, but seem to be floundering a little bit. And the question is, why are we floundering? Jim has ideas on how what we think we already know might be worthy of a fresh look. That's next on BomerLife on CL 650.
Canada's only weekly radio show dedicated to the baby boomer lifestyle. This is BomerLife on CL 650.